Part 58. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 571. Chapter 51. 5 people meet in an adventure. The girl and Yuna said angrily, Xiao Daizai, won't you say hello first? It's so scary every time. Xiao Daizai is the only archer in this adventure team, and he is also responsible for the task of investigation. Xiao Daizai said expressionlessly, I can't see those two people within 100 meters of the surrounding area. Dashita frowned and said, did they leave? Xiao Daizai still maintained his cool and cold face. No, my intuition tells me that they are around. The 5-person adventure team fell silent. The 5 of them have been friends since childhood. This time they secretly entered the Black Forest without telling their families, for their great dream of venturing into the Black Forest. Unfortunately, there were constant dangers along the way. Even on the 3rd day after entering the Black Forest, Xiao Daizai discovered 2 strangers secretly following them. Although the 5 of them are young, that doesn't mean they are stupid. Murder and robbery are commonplace in this place where the sky and the sky are not responding to each other and the earth are not functioning properly. They are young and aggressive, which also means they are not strong and have little experience. If someone is following them, they must have something to do with them. However, if they turned back because of this, they would not be willing to do so. What kind of ridicule would they receive if they returned to the family one by one in a state of embarrassment and with nothing to gain? The arrogant teenagers finally decided to continue deep into the Black Forest. Suchen and his woman walked among the dense trees, and Yulan patted the trees from time to time, listening to something. This is a unique way for the elves to collect information. In the past, they had this ability, but now they have regained it. Master, there are 5 young humans in front of you, Yulan whispered. Suchen nodded. Suddenly, urgent calls for help came. Suchen frowned and took Yulan and Ruoshui for a detour. This kind of ghost place requires more than just saving people. Act within your ability, and even be prepared to prevent the person you rescued from biting you back. Ah, a girl screamed and was shot from the air. Yulan and Ruoshui rushed towards Suchen at the same time. The 3 of them fell to the grass next to them to avoid the human bomb. Boom, the girl fell heavily into the bushes and made no sound. Suchen and the other 3 frowned and went to check, but the girl just fainted. Did he run away? Just hearing a hoarse voice coming from the trees opposite, a middle-aged man wearing green tights jumped out quickly. After seeing Suchen and the others, he was stunned for a moment and subconsciously whispered elf. Suchen narrowed his eyes and whispered kill him. From Ruoshui and Yulan's mouth, Suchen already knew that female elves are the most sought-after goods in the slave market. Since the middle-aged man in green first paid attention to the elves, he could not keep this person. The 3 of them stepped forward at the same time. Suchen charged the middle-aged man head-on, but he endured the attack. Ruoshui and Yulan attacked from the side. The middle-aged man secretly shouted, whistled, and fled behind him. Ruoshui pursued while bending his bow and arrow, whoosh. A foot-long sharp arrow shot out. The middle-aged man in front groaned and fell to the ground. Ruoshui drew out his scimitar and stepped forward. Yulan shouted, be careful. At the same time, a sharp arrow rubbed Ruoshui's arm and shot upward. Fe. Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 572. Chapter 52, Insult the Master, Die. Huh. There was another muffled snort, and Suchen discovered that another middle-aged man in green had fallen directly above Ruoshui. Without waiting for Suchen to give the order, Ruoshui and Yulan held scimitars and jumped out of the way neatly. It was stabbed between the eyebrows. It was only then that Suchen ran to the scene. He didn't touch the fight at all. Instead, his clothes were scratched by the bushes on the way. Two scarred teenagers helped each other and ran over. Some he glanced at Suchen and the others defensively, then walked around them and looked in the direction where the girl fell. Just now, thank you to my 3 brothers and sisters for saving my life. Among the 2 teenagers, the tall and burly boy turned around and said. He found the girl and found that she had just fainted. Captain Dashuo breathed a sigh of relief, and his eyes turned red when he thought of the 2 dead companions. Stone, the smell of blood here will soon attract monsters. Let's bandage our wounds and leave here as soon as possible. Little Knife said with tears. At this time, he could no longer maintain his usual cold expression. He had never experienced life and death for the first time and regretted his reckless entry into the dark forest. When the Big Stone and the Little Knife were hastily bandaging the wound, Suchen and the others came over. Xiao Daizai immediately grabbed the dagger. In the previous battle, the bow and arrow were cut off by the sword of the middle-aged man in green who suddenly appeared. Now he only has this weapon that he can still use. Dashitu sighed. After taking a breath, he stood up reluctantly and said, my benefactor, when we go back, we will repay you. But now we are penniless, and... Suchen glanced at the small knife and waved. If we wanted to kill you, we wouldn't have saved you just now. Moreover, even if we wanted to kill you, with your current state, would it be useful to resist? The Big Stone patted the small knife and said, his rapid breathing gradually calmed down, and he put down the dagger in his hand. Dashitu said without being humble or arrogant, what's wrong with my benefactor? If we can help, we will do our best. Suchen said directly, I want to ask you to teach me how to practice fighting energy or magic. Ruoshui and Yulan had already told he has enough knowledge about this world. Tuki and magic are the most common forms of power in this world. If Suchen wants to gain power, he must practice fighting spirit or magic. This, Big Stone wondered, why doesn't my benefactor go to the academy to study? Xiao Daizai on the side whispered, he is a yellow-skinned man. Big Stone suddenly understood. Suchen frowned and said, what yellow-skinned man? Dashikyo asked awkwardly, don't you know about the benefactor? Looking at Suchen's expression, Dashiro considered his tone and explained, well, I guess the benefactor is not the top 3. People from the 9 principal principalities of the empire, with the skin color of the benefactor, are not allowed to enter the academy to study in the human kingdom, and are not allowed to engage in the professions of ordinary people or nobles. Many protective provisions in the law are also invalid for the benefactor's skin color. The Little Knife on the side added in a low voice, yellow-skinned people have low character, stupidity, and are untouchables. Ruoshui and Yulan were furious, drew out their scimitars and shouted, those who insult their masters will die. Suchen stopped the 2 girls, he wondered why. Dashiro thought for a moment and gave a simple answer, 8,000 years ago, the benefactor's ancestors unified the entire human kingdom. 5,000 years ago, the unified empire collapsed, and then there was the saying of untouchables. _ You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 573. Chapter 53, Entering Lufeng Town. Suchen instantly understood the meaning of the Big Stone. It was very similar to the history of Country Z in the previous life. The kings became kings and the bandits failed. This is how the status of many dynasties came about. It seems that I cannot easily enter the human empire. My benefactor, what we have learned is not deep enough. I can teach you fighting spirit. As for magic, you can ask Enyana. Dashitu said. He didn't have much prejudice against the yellow-skinned people. He was familiar with history and understood that for a nation that once unified the entire human kingdom, it was impossible for an untouchable to erase everything about them. Xiao Daizai has been growing up since he was a child. Being taught by his family not to interact with untouchables, he looked at Suchen with some disgust and fear. He was confused as to why the two noble elves would follow this yellow-skinned man and call him master. Suchen raised his hands and thank you. Dashi, Ruoshui, and Yulan were stunned when they looked at Suchen's hand gesture, but their eyes lit up instantly. This is the etiquette of your nation 5,000 years ago. 5,000 years later, you are actually lucky enough to see it, Big Shitu sighed with some yearning. Xiao Daizai was a little confused and disdainful. Practicing Do Qi is to use a set of special movements to force out the energy containing magic elements in the human body, forming a force that can be controlled by oneself. The movements are very simple. But talent varies from person to person. Hard work can make up for a small part of the weakness, and when you encounter someone with excellent talent, no matter how hard you work, you can't match them. For example, Suchen, you can feel it within an hour with big rocks and small knives. He had used the power of Do Qi all day, and he didn't feel a trace of it. Later that night, Dashi was a little polite, and he might not be suitable for practicing Do Qi. Suchen thought it didn't matter, he was not suitable for Do Qi, maybe his magic talent was amazing. So after cooking a delicious meal for Miss An Yuna, who woke up, the happy An Yuna immediately taught him how to meditate. If you want to become a magician, meditation is the first step. No matter how talented you are in magic, meditation is the first step for them. The only way to advance. Ordinary people with the lowest talents can achieve some results by meditating for 3 days. Unfortunately for Suchen. 7 days later, Suchen and De Shitu finally walked out of the Black Forest and arrived at the edge of the Black Forest. The small town of Lufeng Town. Ruoshui and Yulan came in after being put on makeup by An Yuna. Most magicians know some simple disguise techniques. Suchen specifically asked An Yuna to make Ruoshui and Yulan look ugly. This way no one would deliberately stare at the two of them. A yellow-skinned man led 2 extremely ugly old women, and there were 3 teenagers around them. This strange 6-person adventure team entered Lufeng Town. From then on, as soon as he entered human society, Suchen clearly felt how much they discriminated against the Yanhuang people. The guards in the town yelled at Suchen and wanted to search him, but De Shitu and the others showed their family identities and stopped him. These soldiers escaped because Ruoshui and Yulan had already half-drawn their scimitars. On the simple cross streets, Yanhuang people could be seen doing the most menial jobs from time to time, and they were often beaten and scolded unreasonably by people. But they endured the beatings and scoldings, but they were just silent, as if they were just bodies without souls. Filu reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 574. Chapter 54, Dragon Mystery Code. Along the way, Suchen gritted his teeth. This scene is very similar to the scene from the previous life 100 years ago. Although that group of people only had the same skin color as himself, Suchen suffered the same discrimination as them. Entering a hotel, De Shitu and the others asked for the best room. When Suchen and the others went upstairs, they were stopped by the waiter. The waiter glared at Suchen arrogantly and said, "Yellow-skinned pigs don't deserve to sleep in a first-class room. You despicable guys like you can only sleep in a stable." Suchen exploded and punched the waiter against the wall. If Big Stone and others hadn't stopped him, the man with only half a life left would never have survived this winter. The soldiers who maintained order came after hearing the news. Dashi and An Yuna showed their big family identities and said, "This is a member of our family. It's not your turn to take care of it yet." The soldiers knew these young masters and ladies from noble families. Nodded and bowed and retreated. The people watching outside were astonished. It was the first time in thousands of years that they had seen such an arrogant yellow-skinned man. He was barbaric and rude. No wonder he could only do the most menial jobs. That night, the man died mysteriously. When Suchen asked about Ruoshui and Yulan, the 2 girls said nonchalantly, "It was his blessing to die in our hands." The 6 of them stayed in the best hotels and ate the best meals. Dashi and the others, the three of them, were penniless, but Suchen was not short of money. After killing the Black Elf Queen, he searched the crypt of King Zeng. Later he realized that the strange-shaped glass beads he searched were magic cores worth tens of thousands of gold. The black diamonds inlaid on those jewelry are expensive black, rice-sized black gold stones, worth hundreds of gold coins, and 10 gold coins are enough for them to live here for a month. Suchen, who had become a rich man, became Miss Yuna's favorite. She often dragged her to buy this and that, in exchange for letting her big stone brother teach Suchen a method of martial arts. Dashi was almost annoyed these days. It would take 3 or 4 days before there was a response to the news he sent to his family. Here we still don't know how to report the 2 dead companions to the family. Over there, the forgetful Yuna quickly recovered from her grief and went crazy all day long. He also asked himself to teach Suchen various ways to improve his martial arts. Poor Da Shitu was only 18 years old, but he actually found that he had a white hair. Brother Qin, I really can't find any skills. No matter what skills are, they are all based on magic or fighting spirit. If you are like this, you can only learn the orcs' training methods, Dashi was forced to say helplessly. Suchen's eyes lit up and asked what method. Work hard. Suchen curled his lips. Is it really gone? Da Shitu spread his hands and said. It's really gone. Suchen sighed. Does he really want to learn how to use brute force like an orc? Although his body is indeed developing in the direction of a barbarian. At this time, Miss Yuna walked in with her little hands behind her back and said, Big Stone, don't you have a dragon mystery book at home? Maybe you can let him try it? Suchen's eyes lit up. Dragon mystery code. The big stone hit Ba's mouth twice and said, it's okay to give it to you, but if I give it to you, you are not allowed to ask me to practice the exercises again. Underscore. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 575. Chapter 55. Asking for money does not cost your life. After saying that, he turned to Yuna and warned, especially you, Miss Yuna. Yuna smiled and said nonchalantly, no, no. By the way, Brother Qin, lend me 100 gold coins. Suchen had a poor look on his face and immediately refused. I don't want money, but my life. Yuna said coquettishly, good brother. Just give me 100 gold coins. At worst, I'll give you the big stone. Duh. Shitu said with a dull face on the side. Yuna, you just promised not to get involved with me. Yuna opened her big, round, and beautiful eyes and said innocently, did I say that? Da Shitu's nonchalant agreement made Suchen a little worried. If the dragon mystery code is really as domineering as its name, why was Dashiru in that situation as if he had tricked him and was afraid that he would settle a score with him? What Suchen didn't expect was that the next day, Da Shitu threw a thick book to him. He told himself painfully that it cost him 1 gold coin to buy this book, and it was on credit. Suchen picked up the book and saw the words Analysis Edition of Dragon Mystery Code, written by the great scholar Onov, written in big words in common human language on the cover. On the back, there were also counterfeiting must be investigated and authentic ancient. The words the common price in mainland China is 1 gold coin. Suchen felt so cheated that he resisted the urge to slap someone and opened a few pages, and then his jaw dropped. Damn it! I traveled through time and saw it in this ghost place. Who would believe it? Suchen was so excited that his body was swaying, and he carefully pondered the classical Chinese text on it. As for the so-called Onov's annotation at the bottom, Suchen read a few lines and omitted it. This so-called translation by a great scholar is nonsense. Suchen could at least understand half of a classical Chinese article and know the general meaning of it. Onov's analysis is completely out of context, and even the basic meanings of the words are irrelevant. Suchen estimated that the so-called great scholars in the Jinan ancient continent were probably equivalent to the calling beasts and Zhuangjia in the previous life. However, reading through the whole book, This dragon mysterious code, like the previous Tao Te Ching, talks about some philosophical principles, and there are no secrets on how to practice the exercises. Especially at the end of the article, the so-called great scholar named Onov also mentioned that this dragon mystery code is not the original version, but actually deleted, edited, and reorganized by him without authorization. Damn it! Dashi looked at Suchen with some embarrassment and said, "In a few days, I will have someone give you my dragon mystery book." Suchen said expressionlessly it was also deleted by a scholar. Dashi he hurriedly waved his hands and said absolutely not. The original version, the pure original version. Regardless of whether the Great Stone family's dragon mystery code was the original version or not, Suchen didn't have any hope. Somewhat resigned to his fate, he worked hard every morning and night, running, jumping, dodging, and punching. He practiced sweating profusely every day, but with little effect. He is not even as skilled as a young man like De Shitu. If it were not for his strong body washed by red dragon blood, De Shitu would be able to knock him over with one sword. And what Ruoshui and Yulan can teach him is just to be a sparring partner and give him a little more experience in facing enemies. A few days later, members of the respective families of Dashishi and Yuna and Xiao Daizai all came to Lufeng town. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 576. Chapter 56. The Elephant of the True Dragon. As for the other two dead teenagers, with the three of them, they are already dead, and there is no place to pursue them if they want to, so they can only let it go. Dashi and the three of them had their own thoughts, but they just didn't want to return to the family. Maybe it was an adventure to the Black Forest. It was supposed to be a glamorous plan that would impress the family, but in the end it almost cost them their lives. Or maybe they want to play outside for a few more days. The minds of young people are very frivolous, who can control them? The steward of Dashishi brought Suchen their family's dragon mystery code. Along with the dragon mystery code, there were also 1,000 gold coins. The Anyuna family did the same and gave Suchen 1,500 gold coins. All to thank Suchen for saving his life. Only Xiaodaizai's family was different. They didn't show any expression. It seemed that it was a shame for a yellow-skinned pig to save their young master. On the other hand, the night Xiaodaizai returned home, he secretly slipped a package to Suchen. Inside was a sheathed heavy sword, which was probably worth no less than 1,000 pieces of gold. Although this little guy has a bad mouth, his heart is not as dark as that of his tribe. Suchen played with the épée given to him by Xiao Daozai and said with a smile. The épée weighed about 40 kilograms in his hand. It was 1.5 meters long and 15 centimeters wide. The whole sword was extremely thick and suitable for the current situation. Suchen was a man of brute strength. He returned the sword to its sheath, picked up the original secret book of the Dashishi family, and flipped through it twice. The paper inside almost turned into crumbs and fell off. Suchen cursed, even if this edition is not suitable for use now. It turns into powder after just one look. I don't know if this thing was printed thousands of years ago. Otherwise, if it is valuable enough, why not record it in sheepskin? Sheepskin is durable enough. Dumb. In the hotel, Suchen had nothing to do, holding the Rotten Dragon Mystery Pawn novel. Fortunately, the Dragon Mystery Classic did not start with the line "The Tao can be Tao, but it is not the eternal Tao." It is mixed with a lot of history, and Suchen also enjoys it. According to legend, the dragon god is a 5-clawed golden dragon, but Suchen thinks that the dragon god is more like a person of flesh and blood. This book mentions the dragon god. He is the most powerful god born in this world. In ancient times, he fought with the gods. Although the dragon god finally won, he was seriously injured in the end. Later, the demons invaded the ancient continent, and the dragon god transformed into a monster with his infinite lifespan. It is a seal that seals the gap between the demons and the ancient continent. In fact, the stories recorded in the book cannot withstand scrutiny. If the dragon god was born in this world, why is this dragon mystery code used in a book that should not be used in this world? There are some Chinese characters to record it. Moreover, the image of the dragon god is the same as the real dragon in the previous life. In addition, during the Yao and Shun period in the previous life, the battles of various princes were also described as battles of gods. Especially in the part about Qiyu, cutting off the head can still with his breasts as eyes, he is alive and well. As time goes by, he is easily deified by future generations. Maybe this dragon god is just a powerful master who defeated his enemies and used his remaining power to seal the demon. The passage of the clan. As for the image of a real dragon, Suchen has a hard time understanding it. Unless he sees it with his own eyes, it would be hard for him to believe that it was a fictitious totem in his previous life that could actually transform into a dragon _Fei. Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, share. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 577. Chapter 57, The Beast Tide is Coming. Run for your life in panic. In 2 days, Suchen finished flipping through the book and had a rough look at it without asking for a detailed explanation. I didn't see the cultivation techniques in it, but it did talk about a lot of principles. However, this book is written in Chinese characters throughout, which makes it particularly friendly in this strange world. Suchen carries it with him. The 3 people from Das who left yesterday, and their family members were urging them to do so. Suchen and the other 3 stayed for another 2 days, planning to go somewhere else for a walk. They didn't want to hear the woo-woo horn sound coming from outside while packing their luggage. Boom. 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 There were knocks on the door everywhere in the hotel. Suchen opened the door, and a waiter ran over panting. The waiter knew that this yellow-skinned man was a guest of a noble family and did not dare to be rude like his last colleague, so he said politely, "Sir, pack your bags and leave here quickly, and run to the big city, the beast tide is coming." The same reminder sounded everywhere in the hotel, and the hotel was in chaos. All the guests hurriedly packed up and ran out as if their home was on fire. Suchen saw that the situation was not right, and led the 2 girls out. Only after leaving the door did he realize that in the past, the orderly Lufeng town was now in chaos. Those fleeing, searching for people, fighting, and organizing soldiers to build defense lines were noisy as if the end of the world was coming. Ruoshui and Yulan also urged Suchen to leave. This beast tide is not a child's play, but a natural law of balancing the number of species in this world. If there are too many monsters, they will naturally attack other surrounding species. If you win, there will be more territory to breed more beasts. If you lose, there will be more monsters. Once the demons that come out are gone, the remaining demon beasts can live safely in their original territory. The beast tide launched by the demon beasts is irrational, and swallows up all surrounding species in waves. The demon beasts in the beast tide will like zombies who have lost their intelligence, they only know how to kill, regardless of pain and exhaustion. They will not return to normal until the beast tide is over. The beast tide information sent by Sky Eagle only left Lufeng town 1 hour to prepare, 1 hour in the end. This small town with only low adobe walls will definitely be the first to be engulfed. No soldier is willing to guard here when he knows he will die, even if it is an order from the imperial city. The guard captain cannot suppress his soldiers. He doesn't want to stay here and command. He is only middle-aged, and he still has 3 lovely wives. If he dies, his 3 wives will definitely be occupied by others, and he will have to live a stable life for decades. Therefore, the defense of Lufeng town is left to the most despicable yellow-skinned pigs. Captain, you are so smart. These despicable yellow-skinned pigs are really a bunch of brainless pigs, they will do whatever they are told. A soldier mounted his horse and followed the captain's evacuating team, saying flatteringly. The captain played with his raised beard and said proudly, "This is their life. They were born as the lowest slaves, and now I have given them a chance to win honor for themselves. This is their blessing." Lufeng town is not close to the nearest big city. When Suchen and the other three were about to find a means of transportation, they saw a strange scene on the city wall. There were people jumping around, crying and cursing incessantly. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 578. Chapter 58. You all woke up? On the city wall of the town, more than 100 Yanhuang people stood like sculptures holding weapons, facing the afterglow of the setting sun, making their shadows grow long. Suchen walked over and looked up at them, only to find that each of them had a haggard appearance and dull eyes. They were just wooden frames holding long spears. If the beast tide came over, they would be smashed into pieces without fighting. "Hello. The beast tide is coming, run away for your life." "What a waste of time," Suchen shouted at them. The wind blew by, making the city wall seem even more dull and quiet. Over the black forest in the distance, dark flocks of birds were frightened, and the beast tide was getting closer. There was no response. Suchen felt an inexplicable chill in his heart. Suchen walked up to the city wall and patted a young man on the shoulder. The young man turned his head and looked at him. His unfocused eyes made Suchen tremble. "Hey, the beast tide is coming, run for your life," Suchen said softly. There was no response, as if they couldn't hear it. Suchen slapped the young man hard. The young man was weak and fell to the ground after being slapped like this. Then he habitually, silently lying on the ground, curling up, holding his head, motionless. Suchen remembered this action. When he first came to Lufeng town, when he saw the Yanhuang people being beaten, this was the action of the Yanhuang people. An inexplicable feeling surged in Suchen's heart. There is no greater sorrow than death. Is this what I, a dignified Yanhuang man, look like in this world? Depend on. Suchen couldn't stand the depressing and dead atmosphere here, and shouted to the sky, "Wake up the hell!" He was so angry that he couldn't help but speak it in his original Chinese. He didn't feel anything was different, but at this moment, the atmosphere on the entire city wall rippled like a pebble thrown into stagnant water. The young man lying on the ground raised his head and looked up at Suchen. Ruoshui and Yulan looked at their man with admiration. All the Yanhuang people on the city wall who heard Suchen's roar turned their heads without blinking. He blinked and stared at Suchen. Seeing that they finally responded, Suchen was stunned for a moment, thinking that they could understand Chinese, and shouted, "How can a dignified Yanhuang man be a dog of the Yi tribe? Please stand up for me, get out of the city, and run for your life." When Suchen yelled, the Yanhuang people on the city wall shook as if they were struck by lightning. Unknowingly, their faces were full of tears. At first, they shed tears silently, then they sobbed softly, and in the end more than 100 Yanhuang people in the audience knelt down to Suchen and began to cry loudly. The cries were shrill and even hysterical, as if they wanted to cry out all the pain their ancestors had suffered for generations. Suchen looked at them and stayed where he was. For some reason, he could completely feel everything in their hearts. There was no humiliation or anger, but only boundless despair. Since the collapse of the unified empire, they had been enslaved and wantonly humiliated for 5,000 years. And Suchen, but at this moment, they opened a small hole in the boundless despair, allowing them to see a glimmer of light in this endless despair. Filu reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 579. Chapter 59. Chaos. Run away. The young man at Suchen's feet knelt on the ground and choked with sobs. Great dragon god, your descendant is finally born. We have waited for too long. The sky suddenly darkened. Suchen looked up and saw patches of frightened birds flying over his head in panic. A dull rumble came from the distant black forest. Suchen grabbed the crying young man at his feet and shouted, "Let's go. Let's all go. Run for your life." Everyone was still crying. Suchen's eyes widened when he saw it, and he was about to slap them. Ruoshui and Yulan stopped Suchen. He said softly, "Master, they can't understand you, and neither can we." Suchen was stunned for a moment, and shouted in human common language, "Listen to me, follow me down the city wall immediately, and escape for your life." All the Yanhuang people seemed to as if he had found his backbone. He immediately followed Suchen and ran down the city wall. Suchen asked as he ran, "Are you the only ones in Lufeng town? Where are the other tribesmen? Take them with you and let's run for our lives together." "Why?" Everyone agreed with tears in their eyes and looked around for their families. Suchen took Ruoshui, Yulan, and the remaining bachelors and ran onto the street. A long motorcade passed by, followed by a large group of goods. Suchen immediately called Ruoshui. He and Yulan jumped on the truck, kicked all the people driving the truck out, and robbed them blatantly. Anyone who dared to come up and argue was killed directly. Those who could still bring the truck at this time were either stupid or rich enough. If they didn't rob, who would they rob? The streets were in chaos. The convoy in front found that the convoy behind had been hijacked. Suchen opened the goods and saw that they were all cloth and grain. He ordered everyone to control the carriage immediately and rush to the foot of the city wall. Now only the city wall was calm. People were looking for their families one after another. The rumble from the forest was getting closer and closer. "I couldn't wait any longer." Suchen asked everyone to get on the carriage and threw away some of the goods. The old man, women, and children sat on the carriage. On the cargo pile, all the adult men were running on both sides of the carriage. After leaving the town, all the tribesmen were following the convoy. Suchen looked at the fleeing crowd in front of him, and then looked at the increasingly shaking people. The strong ground shouted, "Only keep one cart of food and throw away the rest." The carriage speeds up, the weak get on, and the rest run faster. Suchen's order was carried out meticulously by the clan members like a king's order. After throwing away most of the goods, the horses pulling the cart started to run faster. Suchen followed the caravan at the back and saw someone who was too weak to run, but those who were still stubborn and refused to get on the carriage were thrown into the carriage one by one. Ruoshui and Yulan followed Suchen closely. Suchen was their master, and they must always protect their master's safety. The nearest big city to Lufeng town, it took more than 60 miles to get there, and Suchen didn't think he could outrun those four-legged monsters at this speed. While he asked the running men to take turns to get on the carriage to rest, he asked them if there were any caves or the like around. "Place of refuge. Sir, I know there is a cave not far from here. It is big enough to hide us," an old man on the carriage replied respectfully. Suchen was overjoyed and asked the old man to guide the way. The convoy left the road and stumbled towards the other side. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 580. Chapter 580, Breaking the City. This is not the time to question the old man. You can only believe what he has or not. If there is, then everyone is likely to survive; if not, everyone will die. Soon, the carriage caused a lot of damage while running on this unmaintained wild road. Suchen had to let relatively strong people carry the old, weak, women and children. Those who could run got down to the ground and started running. The horses were untied from the carriages and used to carry food and luggage. Everyone ran towards the cave together. Suchen held a child in one hand and carried the old man who was guiding the way on his back. He ran forward like a big flag. Ruoshui and Yulan also held 2 children each. Rumble, rumble. Like thunder, an endless line of black monsters and wild beasts formed on the left and right, pushing past the low adobe wall of Lufeng town like a stormy wave. In the blink of an eye, the prosperous Lufeng town was reduced to rubble. The beast tide did not pass through the town, and continued to advance crazily without stopping. All the trees, creatures, and even large boulders as big as eggs along the road were pushed, knocked down, and crushed. After the beast tide, it was a mess. Suchen looked back and saw that there was an angle of about 45 degrees between the direction of the beast tide and his own direction. But the entire beast tide was too huge, as if the entire sky was covered with them, and there was no edge to the left or right. On the avenue the monsters from the front will not collide, but the monsters from other directions will still catch up, and they are closer to his group. Suchen shouted, "Old man, how far is it?" The old man seemed to be shaken on Suchen's back, and it took him a long time to reply, "No. It's not far, just turn around the mountain and you'll be there." Suchen glanced at the mountain in front of him, and his eyesight went dark. "Damn it, as the saying goes, if you look at the mountain, you will die if you run away. The mountain in front of you is right in front of you, but if you really want to run to that mountain, at least you will still have time. 10 miles away. The beasts are chasing after them not far behind their butts. How the hell can they run there with their lives?" Suchen wishes he could throw the old man off his back and beat him so hard right now. After a pause. Fortunately, his sense prevailed, and Suchen gritted his teeth and shouted, "The cave is almost here, everyone, work harder." After hearing Suchen's words, the eyes of the tribesmen widened. The people who were running out of breath seemed to have regained a little strength from their bones. The team moved even faster. The tide of beasts was getting bigger and bigger. The closer he got, Suchen could already see clearly what the monster in front of him looked like. Life and death depended on this moment. The monster chased him desperately, and everyone ran desperately. Unfortunately, the 2-legged ones couldn't outrun the 4-legged ones. When the mountain was still 2 miles away, the people at the back of the team could already feel the stinky breath of the monster behind them on their buttocks. Seeing all this, Suchen pursed his lips tightly, bit his cheek, and ran forward with his head down. At this time, there is no way to save the people behind. Whether everyone can escape depends on God's will. After waiting for a long time, he did not hear the screams behind him. Suchen looked back in confusion and was surprised. He found that the group of irrational monsters actually turned around. Suchen glanced at the direction of the beast tide and suddenly understood. Although the monsters had lost their minds, as part of the entire beast tide, they followed some of the most basic rules in nature. Rules_Philo reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share.